Good morning and happy new year, everybody. I'm going to be walking everyone through how to fly by wire on Microsoft Flight Simulator. This will work both on 2020 and 2024. I'm going to be using Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. That's just what I have. Everything in the cockpit itself will work on 2024 the same. The first thing that you are going to want to do is, if you haven't already, create SimBrief accounts and also download all of the fly-by-wire programs. Everything is listed in the description. So in the description below will be all of the links for not only checklists for this actual tutorial, but all the programs that you're going to need. The only things that cost money are going to be Microsoft Flight Simulator itself, and then one add-on that I'm personally going to be using. You don't need to be using it though for this to work. So the first thing you're going to do once you get your fly-by-wire going here, you're going to want to download that. Doesn't cost anything. It's a free account. So get that running, install it. It'll do all of that on itself. But there's one important step that you have to do before you actually start Flight Sim itself, and that's what's called SimBridge. So follow the instructions to install that, and then just run. I don't have it set on auto start. You can, that just starts it up every time you start your computer, but just run that. And then you are good to go here. Make sure you're all updated on the 320. It also does include a 380. You can also switch over to a 747, and it does include scenery as well. I'm not going to get into that. But once you got that going, make sure SimBridge is running, and then go ahead and get into SimBrief. You're going to need to start a new account, sign up for a new account, and then create a new flight. And then here in just a minute, I will go through all of this stuff and how you plan and generate all of that and export it over to the sim itself in just one moment. Okay, if you are following along up to this point, you should have everything downloaded. You should have, uh, whatchamacallit, SimBridge installed and running. You have A32NX installed and updated. And now you're on SimBrief over here. You have an account created. Uh, One thing you're going to need to do as a new user, you're going to need to get your pilot ID. How are you going to do that is go into your account settings. Might not be in account settings actually, but you will need to get that. I'm going to need to figure out where to get that. Okay, right here. So it is in account settings. Take note of this number right here, your pilot ID. You can just copy it on your clipboard right there, and then click New Flight. I already have a flight going here, so I'm just going to edit flight. And actually, I messed that up too. Let's see if it's still here. And nope. Okay, we're just going to go through this again. Since this is live, you're just going to have to bear with me. It might have... Okay. This was my previous flight, so we are going to be going to from Santa Fe to Phoenix. So you can use whatever airport you want, but if you're following along, obviously, it's just going to be the easiest way to find your airports, by the way, is if you're just looking through a map here, identify your city first. So, for example, we know we are in New Mexico and we are going to Phoenix right here. So you just identify your city right here and then zoom in. And then, oh, you can see there's a couple of airports there. Click this little icon tab right here. That will bring up all of your airport information. So then I can see, okay, I want the international, obviously, because we're flying an Airbus. We want ILS if available and all of that good stuff. So we're just going to type our airport code right in there. And then once you're done, click off of that, and then it's going to automatically generate it. To get a clean view of your flight, just remove that icon. You can zoom out and it will give you your route. The second airport that is listed is just your alternate in case of emergencies or unscheduled, unforeseen events such as closures, emergencies, etc. You're never going to have to use that unless you actually are programming emergencies into the sim itself, obviously. Once we have this done, the next thing you're going to have to fix as a new user here, you're going to have to get your aircraft type and variant of airframe dialed in right. So you're going to want to select what I've got highlighted here, A20N-A320-200N. Make sure that's selected. And then also make sure FlyByWire, Microsoft Flight Simulator, all versions is selected as well. The next thing you're going to want to do is change your cost index higher than 10 if you want it to be a little bit faster. Basically how that works, 100 is the max, and that is max fuel burn, max capabilities of the aircraft. That is basically like you're flying an emergency route 100, and then 10 is like 0. You're trying to save fuel. You're keeping passengers comfortable. You're not in a hurry. So just think of like 1 is the slowest, 100 is max fuel burn, just max route, max performance, max everything. So I have mine set by default to 25. And then you can just come down further here. All of this stuff, just leave it selected as is for defaults right now. I'm not going to get too much into step climbs Everything else you don't need to worry about. So go ahead and skip that for now. Optional entries, skip it. Next thing you just want to take a look at is once you get familiar with this, you're going to be checking your stars and yeah, your stars is what they're called, and that's just these codes down here. Those are going to be inserted into the flight computer itself, which is called the MCDU in the Airbus. Uh, but I will show you guys how to basically get that loaded over there right now. So once you have all of this completed, you're just going to hit generate flight. Oh, and I wanted to show you one thing before I did that, but it's all right. Before you generate the flight, there is a tab up there that says briefing preview. If you want to see like how long your flight's going to be, how much fuel it's going to take, things like that, you can check on that before you actually generate the flight. Once it's generated here, just take a look again, make sure what I'm doing is I'm looking at my stars here to make sure I am going to have an ILS route, basically, is what I'm looking for. Just to make sure everything's going to sync up with the flight computers properly. You don't really need to worry about that too much until you're more familiar and you'll know what to look for. Basically, if you're missing a certain amount of these stars, these codes, you'll know your flight is wrong. You'll just have to redo it. But it's a pretty simple process. The entire theory is called Airbus logic, and it really is logical. It's it's um, it's not made for dummies, but once you understand the theory and the process behind everything, it really does stick, and it's a really good system. So once you have this all completed, you're just going to go to Flight Plan Downloads, select whichever one that you got, 2020 or 2024, and download it. And then you're done. That's all you have to do for this side. Do not close this window. You will need this again. I'm going to drag it over in my other monitor. All right. And while we are just waiting for this to load up, I am going to go do a few things I need to get done, but I will catch you in the menu of the flight sim and we'll show you how to load everything up and get the actual flight plan loaded up via Microsoft. So I'm not going to get into control setup or anything in this tutorial. I will just touch on it briefly and say I use just a generic, what's called a Velocity one flight stick. I wouldn't really recommend it unless you're planning on getting the bracket that is not included with it. So just kind of know what you're getting into before you just start going and buying that kind of stuff. I knew what I wanted, so I knew that it wasn't gonna work unless I had the bracket. So it works for my setup. But once you're into Flight Simulator itself here, you're gonna come into your world map. And there is a bug here. Sometimes when you come into the world map, the space/more option will not show up. If that happens, just hit escape and go back and forth until it does show up. Sometimes if you hit a button like spacebar or something before this world map selection is loaded up, it will glitch and just won't show that for whatever reason. So once that's there, you just use the space bar to hit more and then load save. Remember, we have already downloaded our flight plan, then hit load from your downloads. And then you're just going to load up that flight plan that we just created. One thing you will notice here is we are starting out on the runway. I want to start out cold and dark, so you can't just change it. Thanks, Microsoft. It's a bug. So what you're going to have to do is go to your direct GPS and then scroll until you find wherever you want to go. And then just switch back to IFR high, and then for your flight conditions, if you want them on live weather, have live selected. I have live traffic selected, just so you know what I've got selected there. Graphics settings, the automated settings do pretty well. This generation of flight sim is buggy with 50 series GPUs. So if you have the newest GPUs, well, guess what? It's going to be buggy. It's made for 40 series. So it's getting better though. They keep doing updates and it has gotten better. I am switching to X-Plane, which is one of the reasons why I'm doing this, but this is a great simulator. It's a great flight sim. It's a great beginner's platform if you're just trying to get into it or learn this. I highly recommend it. But once you have all this ready to go, just hit fly. And the only other thing I'm going to be doing is running what's called Beyond ATC, which is a peripheral program that just runs the air traffic control on the side. If you are using the built-in Flight Sims ATC, it's going to be pretty much the same, aside from it might get glitchy when you're on your approaches. Typically, if just kind of rule of thumb, if they don't start giving you directions and headings by not the top of descent, but after that, like basically by the time you are at 10,000 feet or below, just ignore them and just go directly into the airport. Because if you're relying on ATC through Microsoft's program, good luck. You're just never gonna get there. It glitches out. So if you're having problems with that, I highly recommend Beyond ATC. It is a one-time transaction or whatever. You just buy it once. You don't have to have a recurring membership or anything like that. And they update it regularly, and I like it. It's a great platform, so I recommend it, but it is not required. So I am now starting that up on the side, and we're just going to jump in the cockpit here. Now what you're going to want to do is get out your check, have the download in the description there. You're going to want to download that and run through this with me. First thing you're going to want to do here is start your tablet up before anything. And as a new user, oh, look at that. So this is exactly how a new user will actually look. So that's actually a good thing. I'm going to restart this flight because it should connect automatically. However, this right here is how it will look for you as a new user. It'll just say SimBrief data not yet loaded. What you're going to want to do is come into here, and then go to third-party settings, and then you're going to just link your account, and it'll automatically do that. For me, it should automatically sign in if I restart here. There's just so many little bugs with Microsoft Flight Sim. It's like every little thing just has to go just right. Okay, so once you've signed in, it will bring this up. All your flight information, everything's going to show up right there. That's what it should look like. Next, you're going to want to tap on this little ground icon right here, and we're going to start everything up as far as passenger loading. So we're going to want, we don't have any jet bridges at this airport, so we're just going to go door forward, door aft, and then we want our GPU, and we want our baggage truck. And next, we're going to get our fuel proper. So I am looking on the SimBrief window over on my secondary monitor. That window I told you that you were going to need. And we are going to be required for 10,760 pounds of fuel. And it just says that right on the screen after you generate the flight. So 10,760, just enter that in. Make sure you hit the play button or else it will not fuel the jet. Okay, we got our fuel up, and now we can start the passengers. Next, we are going to want to get some power going. So we have our external power source is available here. Go ahead and turn that on. And then basically, this is they make it really easy for you. Everything that says off here, just turn it on. So battery 1, battery 2, I've already turned on. Then we're going to turn these tanks on. Okay. Now we are just going to test our fire systems here, just because we're doing this by the book. And then we're going to get some lights going. And then we're going to follow our checklist. So we're going to want our seat belts. We're going to want all this stuff armed. You can check your lights here if you want. You have your dome light right here on and off. Integrated lights are just these integrated LEDs in the switches themselves. And then a couple more things we need to do while we're up here. We're going to want to turn our APU on and start it. And then we're going to turn our navigation on. One thing you're going to probably want to do with that is change the settings, which is going to be found in the tablet here, and you're going to see this ADIRS line time. I have mine set to fast. If you have it set to real, it's going to take 7 to 9 minutes, I think. It takes a while. So I have mine set to fast, which works just fine for me. You can set it to whatever you want, real or instant, whatever suits your needs. And then we're just going to follow down this checklist. So batteries are on, external power APU as required, ADIRS has been switched on, fuel pumps have been turned on, seat belts on, no smoking on, flight director and LS on, and then barometer set. There's a couple of places that you can get this. You can tune into ATIS on your air traffic control. I'm just going to get it off of SimBrief itself, and I'm going to show you something really quick on here. So where I'm actually getting a lot of crucial information is on my secondary monitor, and it's coming from not only this part right here. This is going to be very important when I'm entering the flight data itself in, but I'm also getting takeoff parameters themselves. So what you're going to do to get those is just hit that little tab there that says takeoff performance. It's going to automatically populate your takeoff runway and everything. Just hit calculate. That's going to give you all of your V speeds, takeoff speeds, QNH, temperature, wind, all of that. So that's how and where I got that from. Now I'm going through and just setting my altimeter and everything like that. So altimeter 3005. And about this time we can probably, oh, I do want to show you guys something too. So if you are running beyond ATC and you sign in, you may run into this issue right here where it says frequency does not exist. In order to fix that error, what you're going to do is just open the flight assistant, come down to AI radio communications, turn it on, and then back off, and that will pop it back up to Santa Fe ground. Then you can request your clearance.
Airbus 22 Juliet on our way to Phoenix Sky Harbor.
Airbus 22 Juliet, Santa Fe ground, cleared to Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport. Size 5 departure, gallop transition, then as filed. Maintain 10,000 feet. Departure frequency 132.8. Squawk 4526.
Cleared to Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport. Size 5 departure, gallop transition, then as filed. Maintain 10,000 feet. Departure frequency 132.8. Squawk 4526. Airbus 22 Juliet.
Airbus 22 Juliet, read that correct. Call me back when ready for pushback or engine start.
Roger that. Airbus 22 Juliet.
Okay, and then when you're getting clearance, when they say squawk followed by a number, that is going to be your identification for your transponder. So to do that in the 320, you just clear all the numbers out and then enter the number in that they gave you. You're going to want to have your TCAS to at least TA. If you have it to TA/RA, if there is any traffic that is in your way, the aircraft is automatically going to move itself around and throw you off your flight plan. So I recommend not using it in a flight sim. I set this to auto. We're going to come over here to our predictive wind shear, turn that on. We don't need to change the mode here for our radar, but we do need to turn it to system 2 from off. And then we can go ahead and shut our door and just get ready for startup here. First thing we got to do before that though is enter everything into the MCDU. In order to do that, it's a pretty quick and easy process. The menu right here, just click on ATSU, followed by AOC menu, initialize/presets, and then down here initialize data request. That's how you're going to have that synced up with your flight plan itself. Now you're going to have to basically verify your flight plan and clear out what are called discontinuities. This is one of the more complicated parts of the entire process. Don't get hung up on it
Boarding
too bad.
completed.
If it doesn't make sense right away, it will click eventually. So what we're going to want to do is come back to our SimBrief, and we're going to want to look at our route, and just start out here by going from our departure, and we're going to be setting it to what runway we're using. So I'm looking on my secondary monitor, it says we're on runway 20. So we're just going to select that, and then we're going to take a look and see if there's any stars, or I'm sorry, SIDs, SID IDs that we need to enter in here. Basically, I do that by just looking on the flight plan itself and looking at those codes that I was calling star codes, but they're also SID IDs, and just finding the one that matches up with what I've got. So I have Ziasis, whatever you want to call it, listed there on the route, so that's just what I'm going to select. And then if there's a transition, and we do have a transition, so that's going to be GUP, and then we just insert it, and it's as easy as that. Okay, so we have a couple of discontinuities here. For this particular flight, what we are going to want to do is just clear this flyby discontinuity. Then we're just going to clear the discontinuity itself. I'm going to take a look at this and then I'll explain it in a little bit more detail, but I'm going to take a look and actually get it right first, and then I'll check back in with you guys. Okay, so for this particular flight, you are going to have to delete 2 waypoints, Flyby and Buco. They are basically going to backtrack you. So once you load everything up here, this part gets a little bit confusing. What you're going to want to do is just click your navigation primary into plan mode. Set it to about 40 nautical miles, and then it's just going to walk you through your flight plan so you can see that it's not like pretzeling you or nodding you around. So what I did is just entered in my departure here, Santa Fe runway 20, and then we are just scrolling down and following it. There were 2 waypoints that needed to go. In order to do that, you just hit clear first, and then tap the soft key next to the waypoint in order to get rid of that. So you just delete Flyby and Buco, and then you will have a straight flight plan in here. One thing you will need to do if you're not using Beyond ATC, you will not be able to manually be vectored in like this. So what you will have to do is type in the name of your waypoint after manual. So for this example, it's ILIKI like. So you would just type that in, just literally spell it out. And then once you have it spelled out there in the scratch pad, you click the soft key right next to manual. That's going to switch your manual vector over to just connecting this entire thing around. That way the ATC isn't going to get confused and vector you wrong, because the built-in ATC will not vector you properly. If you are using Beyond ATC, they will vector you properly, so you don't need to go any further here. Do not delete the manual or change it. And we are done here with the flight plan. That's always the most, that's always the biggest pain of the entire thing. Just take your time with it. If you have to reset it, just go back to your menu and reload everything and start from scratch. If you deleted the wrong waypoints, just start it again. Just by going back into that menu, reinitializing it, then going in and setting your departures and arrivals over again. The next thing you are going to want to make sure you do, and you're going to want to make sure you do it after your aircraft is loaded up and fueled up, is get your weights initialized. It's kind of weird how they do it here, but you just hit initialize, the button itself, and then you're going to page over. And then on these CFW, ZFW, CG, you're just going to tap that soft key. It's going to automatically weight the aircraft, so you're going to tap it again. Just tap it twice. After that, fuel planning is going to show up. Tap that, and it's going to automatically put your block fuel in. Last thing we need to do is our takeoff performance. So to get into that tab, we're just going to hit performance, the button itself, and then you're going to want to come back to the takeoff performance tab that I showed you guys earlier, and everything is just written out for you pretty clear. So V1 is going to be for today, and today's weight is going to be 131 knots. V2 139. And 140. So for your takeoff speeds, if it's anything below 145, you're going to want to set your flaps to 2, and then anything below 140, you're going to want to set your flaps to 3. So 1 by default, 2 anything below 145, 3 below 140. So anything in the 130s, you're going to want 3. Next thing you're going to want to do is transition altitude in the United States is always 18,000 feet. So that's easy. If you are anywhere else in the world, you're going to have to get that in your charts. So for this flight, 18,000 feet. Flaps, we are going to use, we're going to go ahead and do 2 and 0. So to do that, here I'm going to get a better view. To actually type this part in, you're just going to go 2/0 up. The last part is always 0 up. So the first part is what you're going to set them at for takeoff, and then followed by up. Then you're just going to set your flex temp. It's going to give you that in your calculation for takeoff performances. Today it's 39. Looks like if it's anything below 40, usually you can't get a flexible takeoff. So that just means we have to set our throttles all the way forward. Doesn't change much. The only other thing you're going to need to look at here after you enter in C1, which is just your cost index, which we have set to 25. Once you enter that in, you're just going to want to come back to the previous page here and make sure next to flaps there's something that says THS. There's a number under that. take note of that. Make sure it's not negative or positive something. In our case, it's 0, so we don't have to set any takeoff trim. If you have a number there at all, that just coordinates to your trim, your pitch trim. So let's say it said just 0 plus 1. I would just spin this up to 1 up and back down as needed. But we don't need to. It's set as neutral, so we just leave it as is. And if you made it through this part, this is really the hardest part of the flight. So if you guys can master this part and getting everything configured and ready to go, then you've already accomplished 80% of the battle. After our MCDU is complete there, we're just going to go back to our flight plan, leave it be, and then we can continue down our checklist here, which is flap setting confirmed, trim set, engine mode selector, normal, beacon is on, initial altitude set. Initial altitude will be given to you by the radio. So air traffic control departure. In our case, we have been cleared to 10,000 feet. So you're just going to set that in your autopilot here. The entire portion up top is really crucial to flying the aircraft. Everything is flown off of the autopilot itself, save for manual takeoffs and landings. Really, you're just controlling, you're directing this aircraft. You don't have to fly an Airbus, you just have to direct it, really. Now we can just head down to the before start portion of our check. Make sure our windows and doors are closed and locked. Thrust is idle. Parking brake as required. Transponder and TCAS is on and good to go. And then we can hit our chronograph on pushback. I will check back in with you guys here in just a second when I am ready to push.
Airbus 22 Juliet, ramp 46 request pushback.
Airbus 22 Juliet, stand of feet ground, pushback and engine start approved, face northeast.
Pushback approved, face northeast, Airbus 22 Juliet.
And as you can hear, we have been cleared for push and start. Looks like we won't need too much of a pushback, so we can go ahead and get that part initiated here. You're going to do that by just going to your tablet, tapping the ground icon, tapping pushback up in the top right, and then turning the system itself on. Once it's on, call tug, go back or forward, whichever way you want to go, and hey, look at that, we're not going anywhere. It's because of our parking brake. That's good. So what we're going to want to do is just check our surroundings, and then I suggest mapping a button for your parking brake to either your controller, keyboard, or joystick, because it's used frequently. I'm not starting my engines right this second just because this is a tight squeeze here with the pushback, so we just have to make sure we're aware of our surroundings and not distracted. And that's good there, so we can just let it off, activate our parking brakes, make sure your tug is detached, and now we can go ahead and get our engine started. First thing we're going to want to do is make sure our APU is available. Turn on our APU bleed, come down here and change the engine mode selection to ignition, and then start them up. It's going to take some time. Just Give it some time, you'll hear them warm up. Don't try and apply throttle or anything too soon. And if you want to do it by the book, you just start one engine and get it stabilized at a time. The chronographs do function in the cockpit. I use both of them. I start the bottom one up on push, and then I use the top one after the top of descent. Engine number 2 is good to go here, so we can bring number 1 online. And I'm just following along in the on the checklist here. We're just on after start here, after number 1 comes online.
Flight attendants, please prepare for takeoff.
Okay, and engine number 1 is now available. We just wait for it to stabilize here, and once that availability goes away and the packs are online, we can go back to normal on our mode selector. And then just follow down the checklist. Engines are stabilized, APU as needed. I usually turn it off after takeoff, so I just turn the bleed off. We are going to want all of our lights on at this point. So get your landing lights and runway lights on. All of our lights are good to go. Alright, so engine stabilized, APU as required. Flaps need to be set. And then do a quick flight control check. The way you do that is just move your controller or joystick, check all the axes, make sure everything's properly working here on your lower ECAM display. By the way, all of these all of the glass here, just your front displays here, the front 2 are called your primaries, the center 2 are called your ECAM, the flight computer is called your MCDU, the flight director is this panel up top, which is your autopilot controls, and then your panel is up top. So that's what everything is actually called. And then continuing down here, we've checked our flight controls. Our pitch trim is set. Auto brake is max. We need to activate our ground spoilers, armed. Auto brake max. ECAM status. ECAM status is just everything that's on the checklist in the center ECAM itself. So it gives you a takeoff check right here. Auto brake is set to max. Seat belts are already on. Cabin, I'll show you how to check those here after we're taxied. You can let them do their thing back there for now. Spoilers are armed. Flaps, takeoff configuration. And then to finally test and clear that final blue out, just come down here below that secondary ECAM. click takeoff config, sometimes it doesn't register right away. I'm not sure why, but it will go away eventually. Check our brakes and everything. Not sure why it doesn't go away sometimes. I've noticed that. It might have done an update and wants me to check the cabin first. To check your cabin, just do a call on all, and that will set your cabin to ready there. And we have not gotten clearance for taxi yet. All right, taxi checklist. Obtain taxi clearance.
Airbus 22 Juliet, request taxi.
Airbus 22 Juliet, runway 28, taxi via Bravo.
Runway 28, taxi via Bravo, Airbus 22 Juliet.
And if you are not using Beyond ATC, you're going to want to have your stripes on. You turn those on right here through your flight assistant, and just turn your taxi ribbons on if you are not using Beyond ATC. If you are using Beyond ATC, your map is going to be right here on that little icon, the GPS icon. That'll just show you where to go. So if anybody is wondering how I am figuring out where to go, that's what I'm looking at. Yeah, and I'm still not sure why the test isn't going away yet. Yeah, I don't know. Usually it goes away when you tap that takeoff configuration on the lower ECAM, but it's not going to hold us back today, so we're going to continue on with taxiing. There is a learning curve to taxiing around and doing a smooth takeoff, all of that, all of the above. It just takes time. The taxi nose wheel by default is built into your rudder control, so I'm just using the rudder control itself here. The other thing is the braking's kind of weird. To figure that out, the best way to learn is just actually look at the pedals themselves and then apply some brake, and that'll give you an idea visually what's going on and how it's reacting when you're actually hitting that button. Just because when you're first starting out and you're trying to hit your brakes, it doesn't make any sense what's going on. We're at a pretty small airport here today, so it's tight maneuvering.
Airbus 22 Juliet, contact Santa Fe Tower 119.5, take care.
Over to Tower 119.5, Airbus 22 Juliet.
Beyond ATC will direct you to contact tower automatically when you pull up to your departure runway. Once you're there, you can either have the AI ask for clearance, or you can just ask with your hotkey over the microphone, which is what I'm going to do, and this is how it's done. Good afternoon, ground. We are just pulling up to runway 28 and we are ready to go here, Airbus 22 Juliet.
Santa Fe ground, Airbus 22 Juliet, contact tower when at runway hold point.
Tower, we're ready to go here, runway 28, Airbus 22 Juliet.
Airbus 22 Julie, yet Santa Fe Tower, wind 260 at 17 gusts, 26, fly heading 250, runway 28 cleared for takeoff.
Fly heading 250, runway 28 cleared for takeoff, Airbus 22 Juliet.
Okay, we have a pretty small runway here today, so I'm not going to do a flex takeoff. The difference is just where your throttle position is between a flex and full throttle takeoff. That just means my throttle is going to be set all the way forward today, as opposed to the flex mark. If you are running a larger runway and are familiar with your aircraft, I recommend using flex takeoffs. In this situation, we are not going to be using it. I'm going to check this takeoff configuration one more time. Yeah, that usually gets rid of that test blue there, but it's just not today, so we're just going to proceed forward. So you're just going to go through your takeoff checklist. Cabin crew has been advised and is ready on the ECAM. Packs as required, you don't have to do anything there. The packs are just the AC units connected to the engines. Sometimes if you need a little bit more performance out of the engines, you can turn them off. 99% of the time you're not going to have to worry about them, so just go by that. Spoilers are on, flaps are set, trim is set, auto thrust is on by default. Runway heading confirmed. We're going to fly 250. Takeoff data confirmed, and we are good to go. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove my parking brake. I have my manual brakes set on until the engines run up. And we are going to go ahead and do a flexible takeoff. It did give me one, so that just means I have the throttle in the position of that flex indicator, and we just let it spool up. And then you can see that purple bug coming up on my speed. Once we hit that, that is our V rotate speed, which is when we start tilting the aircraft up. And then once you get a positive rate, gear up.
Airbus 22 Juliet, contact Albuquerque Center 1 tree 2.8.
Center on 132.8, Airbus 22 Juliet.
Alright, and then you just keep it in flex. if you take it out of flex too soon, you will get an error because the logic gets confused. So we've been cleared to 250. We're just going to put our primary in nav mode and manually steer it out. And then once we are out of about 1,000 feet, we can go ahead and bring that down to climb, turn our autopilot on, and then we are going to just run our after takeoff checklist. Landing gear up, retract your ground spoilers, flaps, bring those almost up. They need to be at 1 still until after that green speed indicator. So bring them from 2 to 1 for now. And then once your airspeed indicator passes that green S, they can come all the way up. Now we can go ahead and shut our APU off. Also, we're going to shut our runway lights off. And now we just wait for further instruction from ATC.
$2,500.
Albuquerque Center, Airbus 22 Juliet, good day, 9,900 feet.
Airbus 22 Juliet, Albuquerque Center, good day, radar contact, climb and maintain flight level 360.
Climb and maintain flight level 360, Airbus 22 Juliet.
All right, a couple things I want to point out here. On your flight director panel here, everything revolves around a push-pull system on these knobs. So you're going to be operating between what's called manage and optimal modes here. So you can see, like on my speed setting, for example, there's a dot next to the speed and there's no number. That means it's in managed mode. It's controlling everything via my flight plan and the computer itself. We have a manual heading dialed in here right now. I had something kind of mess up there with the ATC, so what I'm going to do is just go direct to, in this case. And then you can see on my heading it changed there to a managed latitude heading with the dot there. To do the same thing now with my climb, I'm going to want to push that, and now I have a dot. So now the entire computer is flying based off of my plan, my flight plan. And you can also zoom out. That's what the range does. So to see your actual plan itself on your navigation knob, you just twist it all the way over to plan, and that just shows you your flight plan and if you're on it. your arc mode. That's going to show you your radar and your flight plan with everything just facing the way the aircraft is. Nav mode gives you radar, your heading, and a little bit of your flight plan. Then VOR and ILS is just for when you're intercepting your landing information there. So I typically keep it on plan, arc, or nav mode between the flight, and then you can just zoom in and out based on where you're at. And then also, if you need to check your flight plan along the way, you can do so down onto your MCDU and your zoom, and that'll show you where you're at. Once you have everything managed here, managed with the dot showing on your flight director display, you're good to go. The only thing you're going to have to do is at 18,000 feet is our transition altitude. So you're going to pull this knob back here on your altimeter, and it's just going to change it to standard above 18,000 feet. Make sure all your lights are turned off. If you're in smooth skies, you can now switch your seatbelts off. And we are now in the cruise portion of the flight. I will check back in with you guys at the top of descent and show you how to enter in all the information properly and be prepared and ready to go for final approach. If there are any questions or anything that anybody needs clarification on, feel free to put them in the chat. I'll be checking at this point in the interaction if anybody has any questions or anything at all.
Airbus 22 Julie, yes, contact Albuquerque Center 124.325.
Center on 124.325, Airbus 22 Juliet, take care. Albuquerque Center, Airbus 22 Juliet, flight level 257.
Airbus 22 Juliet, Albuquerque Center, good day.
One thing I failed to mention along the way is there was a cabin pressure error that comes up. It's buggy. I recommend just clearing them out. If you want to play along and try and adjust the pressure manually, you can. It's up on your upper panel here. And if I could get to it, I would show you just one second. There we go. So up on your panel here, cabin pressure, you can select it into manual mode. So if you do get that error, usually it's because your pressure is just too high. You can switch to manual mode and then just use this button. Sometimes that'll fix the problem. If it doesn't, just clear them out via your ECAM down below here. Anytime there's a warning up top on the ECAM that's interfering with it, you can clear it via below here, just the clear keys, and that'll get rid of it. And as you start climbing above 30-ish thousand feet, you're gonna switch over into Mach. You don't have to do anything, it does that automatically. You just may notice your speed changes to Mach. The reason it does that is because the higher you go, the most consistent rate of velocity and speed up at altitude is the speed of sound. So everybody basically is using speed of sound as their point of reference up at a higher altitude. That's also why we switch to standard altimeter settings above 18,000 feet. And it's kind of creepy too, watching your flight envelope on your airspeed indicator on the left of your primary. The higher up you go, you can see your stall envelope creep above 200 knots. Just because the air is so thin that high up, that really is the stall speed. So it's just interesting to see like that envelope so close, and you can just imagine just SR-71s or fighter jets, just imagine the envelope that they're flying at. It's pretty amazing, the feats of engineering that we have achieved for sure. And then you can actually track your speed relative to Mach at all times, just below on your airspeed, where it says 0.779, 0.78 now. That's 0.78 the speed of sound. So you're going pretty close to 80% the speed of sound. The higher up we go, we're going to get going faster and faster and faster. The reason why aircraft climb at such a high altitude, couple different reasons. One is the lack of turbulence. Two is you can catch a jet stream a lot of times and save a ton of fuel if you're flying with it. And the turbulence is a lot less that high, and then your relative ground speed goes up the higher you go. If you want to take a look at your actual ground speed, you can see your secondary primary says GS and TAS. GS is your actual ground speed, so you can see here. Let me just zoom in. So Ground speed 387 knots, so we're going close to 400 miles an hour if we were on the ground, and then true airspeed 458 knots. So that's how fast we would be going, say if we were below 10,000 feet. So that's kind of how you can figure out how fast you're going relative to a car on the ground or other aircraft. It's just pretty interesting. The A320 it's a performance aircraft, and it's fast, it's maneuverable, it's a good jet. this point in the flight, we're just babysitting it, just making sure it's following its course properly. I've only had a situation one time in over 200 hours where the autopilot got screwed up and didn't follow its flight path accordingly. It's pretty consistent. It can be screwy with the auto landing sometimes. I'd say it's about 90% on auto landings with ILS. It's a pretty good setup, especially for a free setup. It's a very good setup for a free setup. I will check back in with you guys. I'm gonna try and zoom you in here. I think I can zoom in actually. But on the primary there's a little white arrow about halfway between the runway and the aircraft. Once we hit that arrow, I will check back in with you guys and show you what to do from here. We're getting close enough to where we can start entering in our destination information, and I will show you how to do that. First thing you're going to want to do is over in your SimBrief, you're gonna pull up your landing performance, so just click it and it will automatically calculate it. You may actually, some people may want to wait until they actually get clearance. At some point ATC will give you clearance and verify / confirm what runway you're going to be landing on. Sometimes the weather changes the arrival runway up. If it does in this case, I'll show you how to change it. You just use the same star and SID IDs as you did before. You just go to your destination, hit arrival again, and then just change it. Just change the arrival runway to what they change it to. We don't know if it's going to be changed. Probably not. Usually it does not. So we'll just go forth with the arrival information with what we've got. So to do so, you just go into your performance by clicking the performance button on your MCDU, and then keep clicking next phase until you're all the way to this point, which is going to be the last phase. And you're going to enter the following information. Your QNH will be given to you on that landing performance tab. It just says QNH. That's your altimeter. It's going to be the same setting as the radio will give you to set it in up top, so it should match up pretty close. We've got 3009. You don't need to enter any decimals in throughout this entire process. It automatically populates them. Air temperature is always done in Celsius unless you go in and change everything manually, which I have not done. So our air temperature is found on that landing performance chart. It says OAT. That is our outside air temperature. That's the number we enter in. It's 20 degrees Celsius, pretty warm. And then your wind, today it's a calm day, so just 000. This is the one place where you do have to enter a slash in. So after you get your wind information, it's just the heading followed by the speed. So 000 at 0, calm day today. Transition altitude is the same thing, 18,000 feet. And then for our minimums, you can see we have a barometer or a radio setting. Today we are going to be intercepting ILS. So in our case, we're going to use we're going to use the barometer today. So enter in 100 for barometer. Or I'm sorry, mate, it's radio 100. I've been using the barometric pressure for whatchamacallit, different approach than ILS, RNAV. Okay, so for ILS, it's going to be radio 100. Just click the soft tab next to radio. That sets your minimums. In the case of doing an RNAV approach, just put in between 250 and 500 above your destination altitude for barometer if you are doing RNAV. Can get kind of weird if you're at a high elevation airport like we were just at, but for standard things you can pretty much rely on 250 in barometer for RNAV, 100 in the radio for ILS. Today we are doing ILS, so in that instance put 100 in the radio section. Then you can click next phase and you are all configured in the MCDU. Go back to your flight plan, you're good to go. Now we are just waiting until we get to our top of descent. It's marked on our primary here with that little white arrow that is coming up, as you can see. If you didn't change anything on the co-pilot's primary. It's going to be set by default to arc and 10 nautical miles. So basically whatever's coming right up to you within the next minute or so, 1 to 2 minutes. So in other words, when I see that white arrow show up on the co-pilot's display here, I know I'm pretty much at that point. The only weird part about the descent process is figuring out if you get a managed descent or if you just have to do an optimized descent. And I'll show you the difference between the two and how to do both of them here once I figure out which one we're getting. You won't know until you're actually at your top of descent.
Airbus 22 Juliet, increase speed to 270 knots.
Increase speed to 270 knots, Airbus 22 Juliet.
I've never heard that one before, but we can just increase our speed up and, increase our speed.
Airbus 22 Juliet, descend via Eagle 6 arrival, Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport landing runway 8 altimeter 3009er.
Descend via Eagle 6 arrival, Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport landing runway 8 altimeter 3009 Airbus 22 Juliet.
I've never been directed to increase airspeed before, but you do it by just adjusting it here on your airspeed indicator, or not indicator, but flight director panel rather. Just set it to whatever they want you to go and then pull back. So again, you pull for manual, push for managed. Managed just means via the flight computer. So if they direct you to do something other than what you've got programmed in your flight computer itself, then you pull. Pull for manual. So we are going 80% the speed of sound. This is the fastest I've ever seen this aircraft actually go. I've never been directed to go 270 knots at 36,000 feet before, but that's how you do it. So interesting little quirk there got thrown into this flight that I've never seen before. To set this back to our managed speed, it's as simple as just pressing it. So once we actually start our descent, I'm gonna just take that off so that I don't have to sit here and mess with the speed myself. And we also did get our clearance from ATC. They just verified we are landing at runway 08, descending via Eagle 6, which is the SID and star that we have selected here. So as you can see on the primary itself, we are getting very close to that white arrow that is going to signal the top of descent. Once I actually hit that indicator itself, I'm going to start up my secondary chronograph here and enter into our descent. And I will know upon reaching that indicator whether the aircraft is going to accept a managed descent or we're going to have to do it manually. If you have to do a manual descent, it's very easy. It's still going to follow a deviation indicator, so everything is pretty much the same. It's just not quite as accurate. The speed is a little bit faster and more accurate, but the descent itself is not. And I'll show you what I mean by that here momentarily. As you can see on the secondary co-pilot's display here, the white indicator is just about to us. I just keep it at the default setting so I can see what is right in front of my aircraft and what's coming up immediately. We can go ahead and start up our chrono and dial our altitude down to between 6,000 and 4,000 is what I set it at. I usually start at 6, and then once you get to there, you'll usually have instruction for a lower altitude by the time you get there anyways. And then once you do hit this arrow itself, go ahead and always try and push the knob first. So once we actually hit it itself, we are going to see an indication come up on our primary flight display itself as well. So you'll get a couple of different indicators. You can see the arrow's gone itself. Alright, and we have an indicator, so this does not want to accept a managed flight descent. So what we do in this case is we pull the knob back for an optimized descent. So set your altitude to 6,000 AGL and then just pull that knob and it's going to start its descent. Again, we have another cabin pressure warning. That's just because we started out at a high altitude and we can just clear it. So just hit the clear key, get out of that. And then we also need to set our speed back to managed. So if you did change that, make sure it's back to managed, or you're going to be going 270 knots relative all the way down. So that's back to managed. Everything in theory you want to have a dot next to. So it's best when you are doing a descent, if you actually push it, it will give you a dot and give you what's called a managed descent profile. And in that case, you're going to have an envelope that's going to show on your airspeed indicator, and it's going to really stick to that deviation indicator, which is shown on the right for the altitude. It's just a green dot. Right now it's showing that it's 2,000 feet below our current altitude. If you read 32,100 feet, below that you see a little green dot with the number 19 to the left of it. That is what's called our deviation indicator. And what we are trying to do is stay as close to that as possible. The aircraft will automatically do it. If it gets too out of whack, meaning too far below you or too far above you, you can intervene manually. Usually you don't have to, even with an optimized descent. And when I say optimized descent, that just means the mode that the aircraft is in. We set that mode by pulling this knob right here earlier in the flight. If you actually get a managed descent profile, you will have a dot next to your altitude on the flight director itself, and then it will also give you a different setup on your primary too. And I will actually show you how to manually change your vertical descent rate. On the very right knob here, you can decrease your vertical speed. Every 10 is equaled to 1,000. So, meaning, I'll show you here. So we are currently descending at 2,500 feet per minute. To manually intercept that, you just pull this back, and then you can see on our primary it changed to vertical speed minus 2,500. We can then change that down or up. Anything over about 4,000, I would say 3,500 even, would be like emergency territory, just because you can see how fast we're going here. When you do that, your speed is going to just naturally either increase or decrease, because that overrides the speed mode. So don't expect it. Don't expect the aircraft to follow your set speed if you are manually changing your vertical rate of descent. So now you can see we are now below our deviation indicator. It's now above my altitude. So I'm just going to pull the knob again back into engage selected mode, which actually puts it in optimized descent, as you can read on the primary. And now we're closer to that deviation indicator. If we were on an actual managed descent profile, it would be much closer to that deviation indicator. And also, now that I'm coming closer to my descent here, I can see what a disaster my approach is going to be. But it shouldn't be that big of a problem, because all of the end of those waypoints right there, by that time they're probably going to manually vector us. But I'm going to just check in here just for fun. What I did there is just a little bit of what I call in-flight surgery on the flight plan. And what I did was just kind of zoomed forward on the waypoints, identified which waypoints were pretzeling up and knotting everything up. After this last waypoint there, it should just go to manual. So I just kind of know what waypoints should have been there, which waypoints I needed to get rid of by just observing and zooming in. And then you just clear the ones out that you don't need. Just same process as when you're on the ground you can use. The too steep path ahead, you don't really have to worry about that if you're going to be manually vectored after that. You might have to increase your rate of descent a little bit. It just depends. Keep your eye on that green dot, really. That's the flight computer's calculation on your rate of descent. So as long as you're following that, you should be good to go. Things have gotten bumpy enough to where we can tell everybody they need to be seated again. If you do get a managed rated descent, you will be able to also hear the automatic notifications that your co-pilot or whatever gives to the passengers. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You don't have any real control over when and if it happens. If it detects it and he gives an announcement, great. If it doesn't happen, I don't really worry about it. And if you haven't already entered your destination information, you definitely should have at this point in the flight. Everything should be ready to go for the approach phase in the checklist. So just have everything ready to go and be ready to activate your approach phase, which I'll show you how to do here in a minute. We're going to set our barometer. We're already low enough so we can get our altimeter from our ATC 3009, which is the same as we entered in earlier, so it does sync up with SimBrief. Sometimes that can get out of sync, very rarely though. So we can just kind of go through a lot of this. That we can turn on our LS. That's fine to turn on. Our minimums have already been set. Approach briefing just means you know what you're going to do. This is going to be manually vectored after the base waypoint. So that final waypoint, we will be manually vectored by air traffic control, at which point when they clear us to intercept and final approach, we will just manually select that on the MCDU itself, and the airplane will just bring itself right in. As long as you have an ILS runway, you can use auto land all the way in if you want to. You don't have to, but as long as you have ILS and what's called Category 3 dual, you can auto land.
Good day. 10,300 feet with information echo.
Airbus 22 Juliet Phoenix approach. Altimeter 3008, expect radar vectors for ILS runway 08.
Altimeter 3008, expect radar vectors for ILS runway 08, Airbus 22 Juliet.
Once you're below about 10,000 feet or so, you can turn your lights on, kind of get pre-configured. And that's an annoying error message that I've been getting. Any high altitude situation, it forces you just to manually change that cabin pressure. And it's just an obnoxious glitch. I'm not sure how to avoid it or how to get rid of it, but yeah, it's obnoxious, and I've ran into it every time we're cruising at high altitudes, or I'll see if we can fix it here really quick. But anytime you're cruising at high altitudes or at a high altitude airport or something weird like that, it always shows up. You know, maybe I didn't adjust my landing elevation properly. That could have been it. Let's see what that is. anyways, you can always clear it out there via the clear key. The issue is probably at the higher elevation airports. I'm not setting my landing elevation properly, but it should all be automatic when the mode is auto. So in my opinion, that's a glitch on FlyByWire's part. And since we're coming up on 6,000 feet, I am going to now change my altitude increment from 1,000 to 100. So I will now be changing our altitude in increments of 100. And I'm just going to sit here and keep my eye on our deviation indicator. And it's coming down lower here. It's going to be about 1,000 feet above us. Once we hit that final waypoint that I'm keeping my eye on here on our co-pilot's display, actually, I'm using that to just see the waypoints that are right in front of us. And then once we are manually vectored for our final approach, we are going to immediately put the aircraft into the approach phase. You do that here down on your MCDU. I actually, most of the time, will just get it preloaded. So hit your performance button. Then you can see on the lower left, it says activate approach phase.
Heading 255, expect radar vectors for ILS runway 08.
Leave our base heading 255, expect radar vectors for ILS runway 08, Airbus 22 Juliet.
Okay, so there it is. We are now being vectored for our approach. Hit your approach phase and set your heading to whatever they just told you to leave your waypoint at. In our case, 255. So our approach phase is now configured, and we are now just waiting for clearance to final. In the meantime here, let's get us zoomed in on our primary. Bring your range down to about 20 nautical miles, and then you can see here what we're going to intercept. So we're going to go to our direct to button, which is right above flight plan on the MCDU, and press that and bring up this waypoint that's going to be right before. There may be 2 or 3. Lots of times there's 2 waypoints before your airport itself. So just see whatever one's the first waypoint there, that's the one you're going to want to select. And we're also just keeping an eye on that deviation indicator. If you have aircraft training, just run your T-checks across the entire cockpit. All of the instruments, make sure that you're keeping your eye on everything. Don't get focused on one spot for too long. Don't trance out. And now we can see that our instrument landing system has just come online here. And that was activated by the LS button right below our altimeter, so that should be on. And if that is on, you'll start to see these diamonds here. They're going to start coming up when you're close to your arrival.
Airbus 22 Juliet, yes, turn left, heading 195 vectors for the approach.
Turn left, heading 195 Airbus 22 Juliet.
And here we go.
Airbus 22 Juliet, descend and maintain 5,000 feet, altimeter 3008.
Descend and maintain 5,000 feet, altimeter 3008, Airbus 22 Juliet.
And if you were sitting level, make sure to pull the knob again after you dial in an altitude. For example, we are leveled off at 6,000 feet. Once I dialed in 5,000, I have to pull that knob again.
Airbus 22 Juliet, 4 miles from ILEC. Turn left, heading 110, maintain 4,000 until established on the final approach course. Cleared ILS runway 08.
Turn left, heading 110, 4,000 until established. Cleared ILS runway 08, Airbus 22 Juliet.
Just get in the habit of pulling your knob every time you change it. So we are now cleared 110, 4,000 until established. While you're in your turn, go ahead and select that final waypoint, direct to, and your aircraft will now be ready to be configured for landing. So what we're going to do is hit approach mode right below that vertical speed. Hit approach mode. If you want to do an auto landing, make sure both autopilots are on. I always do a Cat 3 dual, even if I plan on landing it manually. Go ahead and set your final altitude to 2,500 above ground level, or else you may not intercept, and then we can configure for landing. So approach checklist, MCDU approach phase check, barometer set, LS on, minimum set, approach briefing set, seatbelts on, final approach. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get our flaps selected first. Get some airspeed down. If you're under about 240 knots, you can bring your gear down. It's going to slow your aircraft down and actually help your descent. Don't be afraid to bring the gear down and help your aircraft slow down. That's what it's made for. And then you're just going to follow your final approach checklist, gear down, and then just configure your flaps as necessary. We can go ahead and get into ILS mode here and just make sure that we are descending with our deviation indicator.
Have a good one.
Over to Tower 118.7, Airbus 22 Juliet. Phoenix Tower, Airbus 22 Juliet, ILS runway 08.
Airbus 22 Juliet, Phoenix Tower, wind 170 at tree, runway 8 cleared to land.
Runway 8 cleared to land, Airbus 22 Juliet.
And make sure your auto brakes are set. Turn those on. Make sure your ground spoilers are armed. Usually this cabin pressure thing will not keep coming up over and over and over. And then you have your final landing check here. What we're going to do is just let it intercept the 2,500 and just keep an eye on it. If we're this low, it should automatically, once we get the ILS signal, it should just bring itself automatically in. And I'll show you how you know if it does or not here in just a second. You can see there's the blue altitude bug that it's set at 2,500 feet. You shouldn't have to do anything from here on out for the aircraft to land itself. As long as you have everything set up the way I just showed you, you don't have to do anything else. The only thing that you have to do here is your cabin check. That's one of the things that I really struggled with figuring out was like just intervening in the autopilot, knowing when to intervene, when to take over. It's pretty easy. So as soon as you see that diamond indicator appear right next to your altitude, as long as the aircraft puts that altitude bug that's in blue now in pink and follows the diamond, you are configured for landing. and it will touch down automatically. And you can see the glide slope appeared in green there. The altitude plug turned pink, and we are now configured fully for landing. Hands off if you want it to do an auto landing. If you want to follow it manually from here on out, turn your autopilot off and just follow your diamonds in. I'm just going to let the aircraft touch itself down.
1,000. Traffic.
And that's exactly why you don't have the RATA turned on your TCAS. If it had noticed traffic and you had the RA turned on, it would have just deviated from your final approach.
400.
The aircraft will also do the rollout. The only thing you have to do manually is your throttle here. And that shouldn't happen.
50, 40, 30, 20. 20. Retard. 5.
If you see that red auto land light up, it's screwed up. So something got messed up and I had to take over manually. 90% of the time that does not happen.
Activate Bravo 8 Airbus 22 Juliet.
If it does happen, just take over, manually land it. It's no big deal. Real life, that would be a go around, but that does not happen in real life. That's a glitch. So that right there is one of the reasons why I'm switching to X-Plane, but for a free platform, this is a great setup. Yeah, that kind of thing just shouldn't happen and wouldn't happen in a real aircraft, but it's fun to practice this kind of stuff on a sim.
Airbus 22 Juliet, contact ground 119.75.
Ground 119.75 Airbus 22 Juliet.
Alright, and then we can go to our after landing checklist, disarm our spoilers, bring our flaps up, start the APU up, landing lights off, runway lights on, and request
Airbus
taxi
22 Juliet,
to our
request taxi to
assigned
assigned
gate.
Airbus 22 Juliet, gate 176, taxi via Bravo 8 Bravo Tango Delta.
Last
Tango
thing we're
3.
going to want to do
Gate
here before we
176
take
Bravo
off,
8
just
Bravo
turn
Tango
our
Delta
radar
Tango
off.
3 Airbus 22 Juliet.
We're not interfering with other aircraft coming in. Strobe lights are always on auto, taxi lights are on, and we have our taxi clearance. Gonna go ahead and see where we gotta go, and now we just taxi to our gate. So what happened there should not happen 90% of the time. It should just automatically touch itself down. A lot of times you can just decide to take over sooner than I did, say 500 feet above, then you can always avoid that situation. But if you're trying to auto land, most major airports will accept it. That very rarely happens. From what I can figure out, it's just an error in the programming. You know, it's following a fake signal, so just something's glitching there. And it does not happen very often, so I'm pretty surprised it happened there. May have been because of low bandwidth and switching offline mode, all of that. The other weird thing was it didn't let me take over right away. Like I have a hotkey set up on my joystick to turn the autopilot off just in case of situations like that. And it didn't register 3 times over. That's just one of the kind of things that I have consistently run into on Flight Simulator, Microsoft Flight Simulator. And you can just see the bugginess, the lag. You know, you got traffic taxiing on the taxiway that I'm supposed to be taking. There's a 75% chance that my gate's going to be taken even though they assigned it to me. Just things like that. It's just the little things. When there's a whole bunch of them, it adds up and adds up and adds up. And that's why I'm switching to Toolis and X-Plane 12. I highly recommend Microsoft Flight Simulator and FlyByWire for anybody who wants to dip their toes in to flight simming. Say they already have a computer with a decent GPU and they just want to dip their toes in to even see if it's for them. That's a great way to go because you can get Flight Sim 2020 for between 25 and 35 bucks now on a sale. FlyByWire is free, so it's a great entry point. Yeah, just here we are, somebody's taking our spot up, so usually I'll give them a second and see if they'll get out of our way, and if not, we can just taxi through it. I have collisions turned off. We can start going through our shutdown checklist. Actually, not quite. Want our engines still. I don't feel like sitting here for 20 minutes. I guess they really do expect me to taxi through here. That's weird. So realistic. This is another hit or miss thing, the jet bridge. Sometimes they'll work, sometimes they won't. To activate it, just go into your ground tab, go to services, hit jet bridge. We've been flying with our doors open. Close those before you fly next time. Hit your jet bridge. That should trigger it. It's not. So don't worry about it. Just follow your shutdown checklist. Sometimes that jet bridge will work, sometimes it won't. So we can just turn our engines off, seat belts off, lights off. Make sure you turn your APU bleed on when you shut your engines down, or else you won't have any HVAC or air conditioning or heat without those engines. All of your lights can come off. I usually leave my nav lights on, nav and logo lights on, just because it's nice having the logo lit up. Nav 8s can come off. Fuel tanks, all of those can go off. You can unlock your door, turn your video on, just switch to payload, deboard, and there you go. Turn your TCAS off. Off, 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 and that's it. And then if you do have external power available, you can turn your APU off as well. Let's see if we can get that going really quick. Once you turn that on, sometimes it'll just plug in quickly, sometimes it has to ship an external truck unit that they drive out to you. That's it. That's a complete flight. Thanks for tuning in. Any questions I will address in the chat. I don't see anything here, so thanks for watching. I do have another tutorial. It's pretty much the same thing. This one's the most updated one though, so I recommend following this one. If I missed something in this one that you were trying to learn, I may have covered it in the other one, so be sure to check that one out as well. If you enjoyed the content, like, subscribe, share it with your friends. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time on X-Plane 12 and the toolless A320 that is officially certified by Airbus from here on out. Thank you very much.